Introduction. I was scrolling Twitter when I came across this tweet that said, PJSK didn't ruin Vocaloid, in fact, it made it better with all the amazing covers and commissioned songs. What truly ruined Vocaloid is the PRSK fans, and it really made me think about something I never really thought of before. I'm not going to get into here, but personally, I really dislike Project Sekai for many different reasons. Despite this, I wouldn't really say that Sekai ruined Vocaloid because I don't think there's anything wrong with Sekai itself, per se, and while of course I find Sekai fans annoying as all hell, it would be hypocritical of me to place the blame entirely on them because Newgen Vocaloid fans are the exact same way and are just as annoying. LMFAO. Vocaloid is a very unique type of media. I don't think it's something that can be ruined quote unquote like a regular fandom can be. I think that when people say Vocaloid has been ruined, I think, for the most part, they mean that the Vocaloid scene is nothing like how it used to be. And I agree completely. While the music is still great as ever, pretty much everything has changed and / or is completely gone. While I wasn't to say some basic ass optimistic shit like I always welcome change or change and inevitable, I'm not going to pretend that I don't prefer the ways things used to be. Again, I won't get into it because it requires a different conversation, but people just have a different attitude towards fandom now. It's all taken so seriously and it's not half as fun as it used to be. Getting back to the topic of Vocaloid, while I disagree, I don't blame people for saying Sekai ruined Vocaloid. I thought the same too. When you see how much better Sekai concerts look compared to the more recent Magical Mirai concerts, the answer seems glaringly obvious. While it hurts to admit it. Crypton is now the company that created hit mobile game Project Sekai instead of the company that created the voice banks that changed all of voice synthesizer technology. If you think this is just me being dramatic or being a hater, allow me to direct you to Piapero's SP bundle. What a shitshow. LMFAO. That kind of quality, or lack of thereof, coming from CFM out of everyone is completely unacceptable. I'm still kind of in disbelief that they decided to release it in that state. I heard people online say it was specifically made for beginners, but that still doesn't explain anything. Why did they use Miku's NT samples for Luca? Why didn't they even bother using Mako's and Luca's old samples from previous voice banks if they weren't going to bother with recording new samples for a brand new voice bank? Why is this product so shitty and soulless? This is literally taking a shit in the hands of your consumers that made Crypton the powerhouse they used to be. They truly do not give a shit about voice banks anymore, and even though thought NT was terrible, the Super Piss bundle was the last straw for me. I don't think it's a difficult conclusion to come to after seeing the obvious visual and auditory decline in recent years. Crypton doesn't care about making quality voice banks anymore. They don't care about the technology or Magical Mirai, they only care about Sekai now. Or I guess a more accurate statement would be that rather, Sekai is their #1 priority now. Body paragraphs. Crypton Future Media is the powerhouse of Vocaloid. Even though I've been such a big fan of Vocaloid and Vocaloid Media for 11 years now, I didn't understand the ricocheting impact that Crypton had been for Vocaloid until a few weeks ago, really. Earlier I called CFM a powerhouse, and I think that's the only way to really describe the relationship between the Vocaloid fandom and Crypton back then. Since they released Miku V2, it was like a non-stop outpour of effort and quality from them. That kind of love is nowhere to be seen from them today. Crypton today wouldn't be caught dead with a quality voice product, since I already explained why the Super Piss Piapero bundle was dogshit. Let me explain why NT was also terrible in a way. Before I explain though, let me say that I don't know how to use Vocaloid, and I don't make any covers, and I don't know how to use any voice synthesizer program. I can only describe my disappointment and opinion as a listener. I vaguely remember when the NT voice banks were announced, and I remember when the NT program and voice bank were announced, and I remember feeling really excited because why wouldn't I? Their last big voice bank released was Miku V4. That was a very big deal. I know because I was there to see and experience it. Listening to Miku V4X for the first time is a core Vocaloid memory for me. It truly felt like the future was here, and now that the technology would never sound better than this. In a way I was right. LMAO. I was blown away listening to her demos, the improvement was so obvious. Especially with her English. After hearing how she sounded, I was so excited to hear how she sounds in upcoming songs in the years. Now on to NT. When I first listened to the NT demos, it was like the exact opposite of memorable. It wasn't offensively bad, I just didn't feel anything when I listened to it. A very clear downgrade from her previous voice banks, that's for certain. Hell, even V2 sounded better. For something like this to be dubbed the next generation of Hatsune Miku software, was the start of the end, it seems, because it was only downwards from here. I acknowledge that whoever is using the voice bank is very important for presentation, and whoever made the official showcases for NT must not be very good, and with some elbow grease Miku NT can sound really good. It's just as a listener it's hard not to notice that the average Miku NT cover sounds so much worse than Miku V4 covers. Not everyone can be Michi M or Giga, you know. Actually no, not just Miku V4 but literally any other voice bank. Append was released 10 years ago and they sound infinitely better than any NT voice bank. They probably sound better than NT ever will, because clearly CFM is not prioritizing voice banks anymore. Now that I think about it, really give it some thought. The only reason why the NT software was created in the first place was probably because they weren't allowed to use Vocaloid software or its name for a gacha game. Why else would they all of a sudden decide to break an entirely new software from scratch? It was always only for the purpose of Sekai. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this in the first place was because I decided I was going to binge watch every Magical Mirai and, of course, I was enjoying myself immensely. But as the years go on, the visual decline became too distracting for me to not notice it. Like seriously. Why does every year since Magical Mirai 2020 look so dark? I thought this is supposed to be the magical future? Where are the above lights? Why does the stage look so lackluster? Why are they dancing in a black shapeless void? And why did the holograms look so much brighter 10 fucking years ago? To some people I might sound like I'm nitpicking, and to those people I say your mother doesn't love you. Even if I hadn't watched these concerts back to back I would have still noticed and complained about the visual decline. It's just that obvious. Just by side pictures you can tell that the old Magical Mirais were visually much more interesting. This especially bothers and frustrates me because of the point I keep mentioning about how Sekai is CFM's #1 priority now. Sekai is a literal money printing machine. It's become one of the most popular gacha games in a very short amount of time. Now with the Eng server I'm certain they'd have much more money now than ever, surely? Much more money than when they were selling just voice banks? Right? So why does Magical Mirai look the worst it's ever been? I'm not expecting a Magical Mirai 2013 or 2016 every single year, but damn. You can't even be bothered to set up some above lasers anymore? Sheesh. Not only is there not much going on visually, but I can't end this section without pointing out how awful the new models look. Okay now, listen okay. CFM wanted to move away from the Sega models. I get it. But my god, couldn't they have at least tried to make them look good? Yeah, they're not real, but that doesn't mean make them look like plastic dolls. Not even nice looking plastic dolls at that. Their clothing has no crevices or folds on them, making them look so cheap looking. And their faces. Jesus Christ, man. I know they're anime characters, but that doesn't mean they aren't allowed to show any emotion. For a long time I thought it was unfair how Miku is the only Cryptonoid who really gets to be expressive. In some performances you can see she's really going all out. She's definitely the most expressive one out of all them. At least she was, and this isn't me saying that the Sega models were normally super expressive or anything, I'm just saying that they made sure that, specifically, Miku can move her eyebrows from time to time. The rest of the Cryptonoids usually just have a cute bug-eyed stare for their whole performance, but that never bothered me that much because the Sega models look really nice. With these new models however they don't look nice at all, and the blank bug-eyed stare is just unsettling and I can't get used to it. Even though I hate them so much I don't want to harp on them for too long because they're not going away no matter how I feel about them. Seeing them for the first time was just so jarring, I still haven't gotten over it. Especially when they immediately transition into an older song with the Sega models. My brain does not register them as the updated versions. I know I just made it sound like CFM has become entirely evil and irredeemable, and that everything Vocaloid related is now stained because they don't care anymore. But that last part isn't true. It's not like Magical Mirai has become completely unwatchable or unenjoyable. Despite everything I just complained about, I'm still having so much watching Mirai concerts. Yes, I'm not having as much fun as I did with older concerts, but they're still bringing me lots of joy nonetheless. Even if it doesn't look very magical or futuristic anymore, I will always adore watching my singing androids dance and sing with an audience in a live band. There's just two things I would say have improved in recent years. One of them being that the other Cryptonoids actually get more than one song. OMG, I really thought I'd never live to see the day Miku doesn't take up absolutely all of the stage time. I'm so glad that Meiko and Kaito are getting stage time now. They used to only get one performance maximum. And in Meiko's she would only always just get to play nostalgique and nothing else. They've finally stopped disrespecting my birth mother, that's definitely another thing to praise them for. The same can be said for Kaito too, I'm so glad he gets more attention now as well. I'm sure right now is the time where CFM has finally understood that fans want to see all of the Cryptonoids have equal stage time and not just the Hatsune Miku and Friends show. Conclusion. One very last thing I would like to say has improved over the years are the band performances. This isn't me saying that the previous performances were bad because they weren't at all, I think it's just more noticeable now because of how little effects there are now. Before it was 50% the Cryptonoids and 50% the band, now it's more like 30% the Cryptonoids and 70% of the band. When I watched Magical Mirai 2023, the concert was absolutely carried by the band only. I sincerely hope that all of their backs are okay after carrying the whole show for 2 hours straight. I'm willing to bet that this is where the almost budget goes into now because it very clearly isn't going to lighting or stage effects. And I'm honestly totally fine with that. At the very least I can still tell that they understand the most important part of the concert is having banger-ass music. I can seriously go on and on about how top-notch the bands have been in recent years, but I feel like I've made my point already. Even though I complained a lot, it's not as if there is nothing to get excited over anymore, or look forward to when it comes to Magical Mirai. Though it's become shockingly visually stagnant, I will still be tuning in every year regardless, because there isn't anything I love more than my singing androids. I don't have anything left to add other than, well, I'm just really disappointed in general. The blatant lack of effort and care in Crypton's recent voice banks is nothing but disrespectful and unacceptable coming from the former powerhouse of Vocaloid. Yes, it's not as if they've entirely abandoned their fanbase, but they clearly aren't prioritizing it half as much as they used to. CFM is no longer the company that created the iconic voice bank that revolutionized synthetic voice technology, they're just the company that created hit gacha mobile game targeted towards children that has Miku and her friends.